Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
Good day, everyone. How you going? Thanks for joining us on the podcast today. It's always a pleasure for you to join us as we try and navigate this crazy world of property investment. It is crazy, but I'd also like to say it's probably also pretty very stable. I was watching the telly the other day, and I think Koshi was interviewing someone around the markets, and they were sort of talking about how bad it is and everyone's going to blow their dough. And I keep banging on about this, and Koshi is a very sensible and astute economist, and he was pretty quick to dismiss a lot of the findings from this particular person. But it made me remember to maybe reconsider the voice that we have here on Smart Property Investment. And, before we get into today's podcast, I just wanted to sort of share with you a little bit of the philosophy of what we do with this show. And, the way I see the world is, you might have heard about me talk about this over the years of doing this, is that I concentrate on the things I can control, and I don't concentrate on those things I can't control. And I'm not one of these people that get swept up with emotion and make myself unnecessarily nervous or with anxiety around over collecting information, which can shape the way I think about property. I look at the facts, and I trust my instincts, but also trust the voice and the professionalism of the people I use to help me invest in property. And when I look at the markets right now, yes, Sydney, Melbourne are softening, and there's an overall sentiment towards property market collapses. What a collapse means, I do not know, but is there a chance that Sydney, Melbourne markets may drop 20% potentially? I look at that as an opportunity. I'm very happy and comfortable with the portfolio we have, and we've purchased well over the many years we've been investing in property. And markets always move in cycles, and you can't always expect property to go up, but we're cashing up. We're getting ready to capitalise on what we think is going to be a very attractive buying market in the period ahead. So my recommendation is to not get too swept away with a lot of noise coming out of the media. I know I keep banging on about this. Trust who you listen to, and make sure that the people that you trust have the right interests in mind in terms of how they're supporting you as you go down property investment. I've just come back from, I was just down in Sydney a couple of hours ago, and just back in the office. There's a big summit going on at the moment called the Better Business Summit for the mortgage industry, and this is a big 5-state roadshow. This is its 4th installment in Sydney. It's gone through Adelaide, Brisbane, and Melbourne, and it's still good to head to Perth next week. But this is run by Momentum Media, which is the sort of the brand behind Smart Property Investment. So it's for mortgage brokers. And I went and sat in a panel discussion there about the Royal Commission. Since the first event in Adelaide to where we are today, it's gone from everyone going, every mortgage broker going, oh my God, what's just happened, through to, 4 weeks later, we're starting to make some sense out of what the rhetoric is around the Royal Commission. Both political parties, both the sitting government, the coalition in Canberra, and the Labor Party have started to make their positions clear on this. And it would look like that a lot of the fears that came out initially from these findings being handed down to where we are today is two very different situations. And rest assured that the industry is right behind Australian consumers to make sure that they have all the choice possible to be able to secure finance when and how and at the best possible price. So we've been chatting about it. Go and look at some of the previous episodes of Smart Property Investment. Go and check it out. But I ran into someone down at the conference today. He's been on the podcast before, so I've managed to pull him away from, I think they just pulled out the beer fridge, and everyone's sort of already networking, but I've dragged him up into the studio here in North Sydney to have a chat with me. It's Aaron Christie-David. He's the director or founder of Atelier Wealth. He was on about sort of 3-4 months ago. We had a bit of a chat, but he's back here and he's going to tell us about what all this means. How you going, mate? It's a very long-winded introduction, but my philosophy of, just get on with it, get it done, don't get all consumed with all the noise and potentially the bullshit or misinformation, and just do what you can do, as in shift your mindset. You see the world pretty much the same way.
Absolutely. I think, BS radar is probably one of the job descriptions that we have, mate. So trying to make sense of all what's going on in the market, and just, I guess, distilling that to go, what's your game plan, what's your strategy, and how do you kind of effectively shuttle that noise out to become a really good investor, especially in this current market, mate?
So we haven't spoken on the podcast, at least. I don't know if we've actually met since the Royal Commission was handed down. What was your initial reaction to it when you first heard it?
Like every mortgage broker, probably got a little bit blindsided maybe by the results of it and recommendations. I think what you mentioned before about the sky isn't falling on our heads as a mortgage broker. In fact, it's probably opened up a lot more opportunities and a lot more conversations off the back of a Royal Commission to go, actually, how does a mortgage broker get paid? What is our role in the market? How do we take conflict away from it? So I think what it's really done is maybe open up a lot of conversations about, one, our industry, two, about how we get paid, and actually who do we work for and what are the best outcomes effectively, because the whole industry is built on trying to get customers a home loan and make it easy as possible. So if we go back to that really core principle about what our role is, that's what it is.
And I can't remember who said it today, but it's sort of like an underlying message that I've picked up over the course of the conference today is that what a great opportunity for mortgage brokers right now. It's been put on the front page of every single newspaper in the land. Australians now actually even more understand or starting to understand and appreciate what a mortgage broker can do for them. And you look at the stats, right? 60% of all Australians are now currently right now choosing to use a mortgage broker.
Spot on.
So there's this 40% of people who aren't using mortgage brokers, who haven't benefited from using brokers, who are now going, oh, I didn't really understand it. Now I sort of get it. What a great opportunity for brokers.
I mean, absolutely. And I think even it's the underdog story going, there's big banks versus the mortgage brokers, bit of David Goliath. We love to see fairness and equality in the market, and handing power back to the big banks was never meant to be the outcome of this Royal Commission, mate. So I think that's what's coming out in the wash, a little bit of that. Let's actually go back to what are we doing for a Royal Commission, and really the Australian consumer should be in a better position, not a worse position off the back of this as well.
And one of the real encouraging things that came out of Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister, subsequent to the Royal Commission recommendations, was that he said publicly that, to paraphrase, by removing brokers, you will remove competition in the marketplace, and Australians have all the rights, Australian consumers, borrowers, have the right to having competition, better products, better priced products which can best suit their needs and be accessible to them, irrespective of a relationship they might have with major banks. So it's good to see the Prime Minister get behind it.
Absolutely.
And Prime Minister in waiting, Bill Shorten, depends who you talk to. I'm apolitical. I don't know what's going to happen in the election, but they've changed their tune as well, and they're also acknowledging the very important role that brokers play in ensuring and equipping consumers, i.e. property investors, who we're chatting about right now, the right stuff. So I feel like the Royal Commission has been done to death. And
mate, we're sick of it as much as you are.
Talking about everyone's sort of getting on with it. We've spoken about it on the show a fair bit, but let's talk about some tangible takeaways with that. So it's just not the changes to broker remuneration, which is part of the Royal Commission recommendation. There's some other stuff which is a real positive for mortgage brokers. One of these around best interest duties and stuff.
Correct.
The broker needs to operate completely in your best interest, which I'd like to think most brokers do already, but it's going to be locked into their role and obligations as a broker. And the banks don't have that best interest duty, right? They operate on the NCC meeting and stuff. So there's a bit of a benefit for brokers. But what does it mean for investors from your side in the conversations you had so far about the Royal Commission and how brokers are doing what they do? Yeah,
absolutely. I think what we've found is non-bank lenders challenger banks, because they don't sit under the same APRA restrictions. They've really put their hand up as challenger lenders and trying to help and extend, I guess, a welcome arm to investors, because the big banks have kind of shut up shop a little bit, become really restrictive around lending during this Royal Commission, and I can't see them easing up either. We're seeing some really strong competition from the non-bank lenders who are almost specialising in that investor space as well. So if you're an investor, and your listeners definitely are, be open to kind of exploring your challenger banks, non-bank lenders who you may not have heard, that are still very safe and secure. You just may not have heard of them because they distribute primarily exclusively through mortgage brokers. So lean on your broker and look at their recommendations. So, a broker might recommend a major bank, so NAB, Westpac, CBA and ANZ, or they might recommend a non-major bank like an ING or a Macquarie or whatever, Bank West, or they might recommend a non-bank like a Pepper or a Liberty, or they might recommend a mutual, which is like a heritage bank or one of the smaller credit unions, for example.
So be open. There's a lot of good products on the market.
Spot on.
Yeah. And any other sort of major changes for investors you think from the Royal Commission? They probably just get inundated with a whole bunch of the BS and noise coming out of it. What should you be putting in front of your mind as an investor? Yeah. I think it's going back to that point you mentioned at the start. It's shut out the noise. What do you need to know as an investor? There's still banks lending. There's still interest-only products. And I think one thing that we've dialed up is probably interest-only lending at 90%'s come back from a couple of lenders. Some banks are kind of moving in and out of rate as well. Rates become a bit of a talking point. Is the RBA going to cut? If they don't, I don't think things are going to move too much in terms of a rate point of view. So don't chase the rate. Don't worry about that. More go back to the right lender, the right strategy. That's going to help you either build your portfolio, pay down your debt, whatever your goal is at the moment, kind of the next, I'd say short term will be the next 2 to 3 years. Really get clear on what that is and find a lender that's going to meet those needs for the next 2 to 3 years. And every single investor I know doesn't want to have a home loan, right? Every investor wants their
the arch rival of an investor.
It is. It's unencumbered property, right? You own 100% of it, right? So in many ways, the home loan, the mortgage is it's a utility vehicle for you to shift towards it, potentially a unencumbered debt, or it's part of a portfolio mix up and you're using it as a tool to create wealth, right?
Correct.
So your point around not chasing rate, and I'd like to think most investors are sort of a bit beyond that. I think if you're a first-time buyer, it's all about the rate, but it's not all about the rate. It's about the conditions, the policy it's connected with it, whether or not it's the right thing for a particular property in your portfolio doing a particular thing. How do you work? If that's all a bit beyond you, can your mortgage broker help you out with that sort of stuff?
They absolutely should be helping you out. I think that's where niching and getting very specialist in types of lending would help. So some brokers specialize in low doc or construction. In our business, we specialize in helping investors, self-employed and SMSF. So once you get really clear on those niches, you know which policies, you know which banks to go to. So I think having a clear, focused, specialized broker will get you much closer to the short list of lenders that you need and the right outcomes that you're looking for.
And the investors that you're working with right now, I sort of share with you where my headspace is now in terms of, yes, markets are coming back. Things move in cycles. Don't always go up. This is just normal. This is just a normal cycle. So we're looking for opportunities in this marketplace. The work you're doing or the conversations you're having with investors right now, are people starting to go, hang on a sec, this could be a generational opportunity to secure some great assets?
Correct, mate. They've probably been locked out of the Sydney, Melbourne market for quite some time, last 3 to 4 years. I'm probably one of them, going, it's too expensive to get into the market. Now we're seeing some opportunities come in. What we're saying to them is be very selective about the opportunities that you're kind of taking on or shortlisting as well. But exactly what you're saying, mate. There are going to be opportunities coming up over the next 1 to 2 years, I believe.
And what are the good investors doing? Are they just cashing up or they're working their strategies out?
Strategies, deleveraging is probably one thing that I'd suggest. Where I go with that is maybe losing expensive liabilities like a car lease, for example, cutting off credit cards, tightening up living expenses. So these are, go back to anyone, these are really good money habits to be having. But the smart investors are the ones that are really going, how do we get our house in order? Maybe get a line of credit organised, for example, because that's probably one thing that's going to start tightening up. The banks that are not going to let you actually release the equity as well. And I guess overlaying that is the fact that we're seeing some softer valuations, particularly around Sydney and Melbourne, for investors that want to try and get equity out. That's probably not the valuations they were expecting what they were getting a couple of years ago as well.
How far off are vals coming, sort of Melbourne and Sydney, you reckon?
I'd say about 10% at least. I could quote examples. I'll give you one. Up on the Northern Beaches in Sydney, they bought off the plan 2017. Numbers came in at 850. They've got valued by a bank at 750. Multiple banks. I think what else wasn't around a few years ago was postcode restrictions. So if you did buy off the plan, that was pitched to mainly investors. If that comes in short, that valuation, then you're restricted around which banks will either lend to you, but also if you've got postcode restrictions and then actual LVR. So if it's maybe 80% or 70% in some areas, you're really running low on lenders because then they have what they call exposure limits on that building or that development as well. So again, it's making sure you've got 2 or 3 backup options to say, if that doesn't work with lender A, we need B and C. So you're not stressing out if you're coming up. That's one example off the plans. But then we're seeing people that are revaluing their homes, probably slip back by about at least 10%. And valuers are being a little bit more conservative. We're seeing that in the valuation reports because they're on the hook for those reports for the next 7 years if people don't know.
Yeah. And that's a lot of risk to take on, right? They need to make sure they get it right. But what you point out is really important. The reason why a mortgage broker, for example, should know or knows the nuances of a particular suburb. You're talking about not one lender does not want to have too much exposure in one particular building if it's all been bought off the plan. So this is when rate becomes largely irrelevant.
Spot on.
And is when it's about the policy connected with the product is the most important thing. And you're more than welcome to go and work it all out yourself, but it's pretty
good luck. If it's DIY, mate, then good luck to you. You can do my job then.
Yeah, and a mortgage broker is worth its weight in gold. So you're talking about how investors are looking at how they can cash themselves up to be ready to capitalise on market, and they might be thinking 6 or 9 months away, but that's the time frame you need to be thinking about these sort of things.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, getting your house in order for the next 6 to 12 months, and a part of that, again, going back to what's in or out of your control. Lending policy could well and truly change over the next 6 to 12 months. So again, being able to roll with the punches, that's a good investor. Saying, look, one door opens, another door closes, or if things tighten up, well, again, let's start to look at different lender options that you may not have considered a few months ago as well.
So go back to the Royal Commissions, I guess interconnected. Is there much of an impact if you use a mortgage broker? What do you need to know? Should it really change the way they operate other than potential this best interest thing? Is it just business as usual?
Look, if you're a really good investor, and I'll give you an example of what happens in our business, right? So what they're saying is trail commission. Let's just put that on the table and say, well, it's money for nothing. Well, if you're an investor and you are, Phil, and you say, look, I want to buy my next 2 properties, and we have to go back and map that out. So do servicing, do requirements, do lender options, and come back to you with absolute confidence, because now we're going to set you out into the market with a certain borrowing capacity and then engage a buyer's agent usually as well. We need to actually be able to, I guess, have that foresight. That takes time out of our business. As a broker, I need to spend probably about 3 or 4 hours. My team needs to do that as well, to do servicing, to do checks, to make sure those numbers are right if we're going to brief in a buyer's agent. So understand the role of your broker, understanding what they do behind the scenes. It's not just kind of, yep, you're good to go and here's the rates and here's your options. We've actually got to do the servicing calculators. We've got to check lender policy as well. We've got to check what's going to happen if they change their policies over the next few months, rates start to increase. I'll give you one example. At the moment now, lenders are asking for all the costs that are associated with your investment property. So maybe it's strata, rates, outgoings, property management, insurances. They weren't asking those questions 12 months ago, let alone at the peak of the market in 2015, right? So investors are now getting caught short going, well, I don't disclose that. You never had to. But now banks are asking for more transparency around that as well, which you take, they've dialed down the rental expense, the rental income that they'll take, and they're dialing up the expenses that you've got associated with that property. So it's kind of causing a bit of a headache for some investors, mate.
So it's harder, and this is the whole credit squeeze, right? It's the availability of credit, and one of the reasons why credit isn't as readily available as what it once was is that they've changed the way in which they assess you. And this goes back to your point around deleveraging, right? Get rid of your credit cards, get rid of unnecessary, not productive debt, car loans, all this sort of stuff, and be a cleaner picture, cleaner bill of slate to a lender, and that can really benefit you, can't it?
I mean, I'll give you our example in our household. We had a fairly decent car, it was a Golf GTI, and it would have been costing us probably about $800 a month. Kind of got to last year and said, what do we need it for? Really, I'd rather buy more investment properties that are income producing asset compared to having a car that's a depreciating liability. It's actually costing me and taking away borrowing capacity. So we sold it, bought a car cash, for example. That $800 now goes towards either saving up for another property, can go towards travel money, whatever it's going to be, but that's money in our back pocket, right? So credit cards, again, the way that banks look at your credit cards, it murders people's borrowing capacity. So if you don't need it, just because you use the credit card and you clear it off each month, the bank still takes that as a liability, because at any point tomorrow you can go and max out that credit card, which is we're trying to, again, your whole property podcast is built around education. We want your listeners to know, mate, if you're not using the credit cards, cut it up, get down to one. Become a better borrower in the bank's eyes by kind of deleveraging all that non-productive debt that you've got and trying to set yourself up to get a better borrowing capacity. What do you want more? A decent car, or do you want to buy the property? I say, mate, my philosophy is 20, 30 years time when that property's paid off, then use that rental income to buy yourself a decent car, and someone's paying for you, effectively for your car. And it's kind of changed in the paradigms that people have around money, because I think new car sales, it was reading this week's AFR, new car sales have started to hit a wall because property prices have slid back. Now, there's a direct correlation between property prices going upwards and new car sales. And I think that's what rookie people will do, is going out and buy a new car through equity in their home. Mate, depreciating liability, get rid of it.
Yeah, and I think that's a light bulb moment for a lot of people when they sort of get it.
Correct.
And sort of the same thing. I think we all do. We sort of get to a point and go, oh, yeah, maybe I don't really need that stuff but it all comes out in goal setting, right? And we talk about this a lot on the Smart Property Investment Show, about how your goal setting is going to dictate what actions and activities you do to move towards those goals. And if your goal is to drive a fancy car and go on European holidays and live paycheck to paycheck, that's cool. That's cool if you want to do that. That's what you do, cool. I spent my 20s doing that.
Exactly.
I wasn't going on European holidays and driving Ferraris or anything. I was living out of dodgy cockroach-ridden backpackers and out of a backpack. But anyway, that was a choice I made, and I'm happy with that choice.
And you've grown since that. And I think one thing that I'm seeing a lot in the Australian public is the embracing of someone like a barefoot investor, Scott Pape. I love it. He might have a crack at mortgage brokers. Mate, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't bother us. But the money principles that he has is their ideal. It's money education, going, live within your means, save up enough money, have some funds in your accounts, for example, for a rainy day. These are good core money principles. And when I try to explain to people, I'll give you one example with money myths. People go, I need a credit card to get a credit rating. I'm like, where did you hear that?
Yeah.
And they the bank said it. Mate, a bank giving us financial education is like Coca-Cola trying to give us tips about a diet, right? So I'm like, it's flawed. It's got an agenda. So why don't you go to someone, and again, I'll kind of beat our chest a little bit as a mortgage broker, going, we're acting for you to try and help you achieve your goals. It's called skin in the game, mate, because if our clients do well, yeah, naturally we will do well, but that's what a good partnership really is. Same with your buyer's agent, same with your insurance broker, same with your accountant, financial planner. If we've all got skin in the game, we're kind of rising the tide, and like iron sharpens iron, you want a good team around you as well.
That's good. And what's going on with you at the moment? You're investing. We touched on your portfolio very quickly last time we got together. What's happening? You in buying mode?
We are sitting on waiting mode, which I kind of hate because I've got splinters in my bum, sitting around on a fence. But I think one thing that's really changed for us is, we've had a baby in the last 6 months. So again, a lot of families will go, what happens for us as a family? And we've always said we're going down this rent-vested path, and we've made a decision to have 2 investment properties. We sold one that reached the peak of the market. It probably did its job for us. We don't really want to sell our properties, but I think my wife Bernadette and I think we're like every other Australian couple. We will sometimes disagree on our investment strategy. I think that's good because you want a good yin and yang relationship. And we say that with our clients, husband and wife, partners, for example, they're trying to get on the same page financially and have the right goals, ultimately what they're looking to do. So for us, again, going back to that stripping out costs, we moved out of Sydney. We've got to a beachside lifestyle. We're controlling our expenses for one. We're getting our house in order. Our properties are performing. We've been principal interest on our investment properties for the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years, contrary to popular opinion. We go interest only. We don't care. We just want them all paid off. So the faster they're all paid off, the more, one, there's more equity in those properties. But 2, it means that we can kind of get to that point where we're getting more passive income coming through our properties as well.
So your process in a goal setting, what you sort of touched on there were some tactics which I imagine help you get towards your goal. So you moved down somewhere down in Wollongong or something.
Yeah, we're down in Thirroul, mate.
Yeah, down through a lovely place, by the way.
It's quite
So part of your goal is about a lifestyle option. You're building out your business, all that sort of stuff. How do you go about assessing or reassessing those decisions you've made to set your goals, and then how do you tweak them?
It's having very honest conversations, and especially around money, because as in our situation where as a couple, it's probably one of the things that we want to push to the side because it's not romantic to talk about. But
my wife hates talking about money.
Date night becomes a different type of night, right, when you're talking money. But I think it's good practices to have because it quite often can be the biggest sticking point or a bugbear in a relationship. So why don't we just put it on the table? And I think once you kind of take that weight off your shoulder as a couple and go, yep, we're on the same page financially. It's what we have. The term that we give it is state of wallet equals state of mind. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're in survival mode. That's just how you are in life. You're making decisions around that. Whereas if you're ahead of the curve financially, you've got money in the bank, you've got good savings, that puts you in a much better place to make good decisions and quality lifestyle decisions. So we need a budget because we want to travel. Okay, we need to save for that, for example. So we don't borrow, we don't pay for a trip on a credit card. We need to save for it. We know what our rental expense, we know what our properties are going to cost us. We know what we need to do from a business point of view. So I think once that's all clicking together, one that kind of puts you together in a really good relationship. If you're a single person, you need someone to be accountable to. And that's where maybe the team starts to come around you with the accountant, the financial planner, the mortgage broker, buyer's agent, or even find a buddy, a mentor, a property mentor. We've got a couple of those in our business with clients trying to aspire to get portfolios. So we match them up sometimes and go, look, have a coffee, have a chat. How did you do it? Because the seasoned investors, just like you, mate, you want to give back to people. They would love to share their advice and go, here's what I did wrong. And that's what we do in our found couples who have achieved what we want to financially. What did you do? What should we avoid, or what mistakes we need to be aware of? And actually just getting action, taking action, getting it done.
So it sounds like to me that and it made me think about one of the speakers today down at this conference at the Better Business Summit. And it's something I've always believed in, is that you've got to get your home front sorted out before you can be exceptional in other parts of your life. And you talking about your finances there on your home front, having a holistic approach and commonality in your views towards getting that part of your partnership right, as in the relationship you have with your wife. If you get that stuff sorted out, you can do the other stuff with confidence. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're always fighting with uncertainty, you never really get ahead. And I think everyone eventually gets that, but something needs to trigger that sort of thought process for people to get that a reality.
Yeah, it's almost the third wheel in a relationship, mate. Money, right? You want to have a good relationship with money, and I think things will take care of itself afterwards as well.
So your goal setting then, is it? You said you're waiting for the market. Are you ready? You're a mortgage broker. You're telling people this. Are you ready are you ready? Do you have money that you can access to capitalize on an opportunity at any given time?
Absolutely, you need to. Yeah. So if the opportunity pops up, we've got buyers agents that we can contact at any given point. I still love the Sydney market. Yeah, maybe I'm a Sydney boy.
Not anymore.
No, by association.
By association. You're still on the train line. It's only
correct,
40 minutes away. Right?
Yeah, I still love some parts of Sydney, for example. I think it's always a destination that people want to live in. Having said that, though, Melbourne's a very livable city, ticks a lot of boxes as well. So, yeah, for us, we've got funding ready. We've got an agreed strategy and what we want to achieve next from these two properties. The core of our strategy is generational wealth through property. It's something that we advocate a lot in our business and as a relationship as well. So we buy these. We want these to be in our family, our bloodline for a long time to come because, it's been hard for us to buy property. I always say, can you imagine if your grandfather bought a property, I don't know, in Manly or Coogee 30 years ago, then $200,000 was a lot for them then, perhaps, or 100,000. Can you imagine what property's going to do in the next 30 years? We just had a baby and I'm like, well, it's going to be much tougher for her in, call it 20, 30 years if she wants to buy a home. So how do we get in? How do we build a portfolio as a family and have that kind of abundance mindset to go, we want to see our next, the next generation do well. And that's really on us to take some action.
Did becoming a father change your goal setting around sort of a greater emphasis towards generational wealth and sort of that provision for, the future of the family?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have this idea in your head and you're a dad as well, Phil. So in your mind, you go, yeah, this is how I want to be. And then it really happens. And you start to think not just about us anymore. You go, there's someone else that we really need to take care of. And I think even from an example point of view, teach them and show them because actions speak louder than words. So we actually want to show them here's how to make good decisions, to think through it. So we need to live and breathe that ourselves, mate. So yeah, absolutely. And it has changed our perspective a lot.
Does it worry you about, and I think about this sometimes, that if you provide too much of a generational asset for whether it's your children or their children, that it's going to make them less
lazy,
talented or less hungry? Yeah, you know what I mean?
Mate, it's like, I think it would be every parent's nightmare, right? Like silver spoon. I wasn't part of Lucky Sperm Club. I grew up in working class. I always say working class, but middle class Sydney. It didn't go without, but didn't have a silver spoon in our mouth, mate. So I think that kind of you want that hunger in the belly for one, but also I think it's kind of beautiful to be that secret millionaire as well, right? You don't have to have like the expensive car. You don't have to have the expensive clothes to go with it. You go, if you're going to teach good values, and that's what you want to pass on, pass on to investors, you want to pass it on to your kids. If you want to kind of be that thought leader, then you got to live and breathe it. So your actions can't do something else that your thoughts or your words are doing. So I think if you're comfortable in your own skin as an investor, build your portfolio to help people as well. I think part of the good investors I see help others as well, and that's probably what any mentor-mentee relationship really does that as well. So I say to any of your listeners, if you're starting your journey, find someone who really has got what you aspire to, and just connect with them. Yeah. And that's what we do. And
I completely agree with you. Good people are more than happy, and the best investors I see are happy to share warts and all, how you go about doing it. I guess it's one of the sort of guiding principles of the Smart Property Investment Show. The fact that I can have conversations with guys like you and hopefully impart some of your experiences and knowledge and skills in this space, and even if someone just takes one idea out of this and go, what, that's it.
Cool. From our experience, for myself and my wife Bernadette, first home owners grant, we went down that path. We sold a property, we renovated a property, we bought off the plan. We bought commercial. We set up a self-managed super fund. We're self-employed. We're investors. At some stage we'll buy. Yeah. So I'm like, mate, we've kind of been there, done that for a lot of people that are going through the journey. And quite often people will get to that pathway going, should I buy my own home? Should I invest? Should I be a rent investor? How do I build my portfolio? And it's like, mate, it's going to happen over time. So you can't rush it. So, 3 properties in 3 years will happen for some people, but they didn't just get there. And I think for some people, they've got to have that. That's one thing I think, go back to the strategy, go back to what you're looking to do, find the right team around you. So I think those principles will not change, and they have not changed in investing.
This got awfully philosophical towards the back
end
of this
almost
podcast,
has,
which is cool. I quite like chatting that in that way. But, it's go out there and it's okay. Number one, it's okay to ask for help.
Yep.
Even if you have to pay for it, right? That's what an advisor is.
Mate, you actually want to pay for it because there's skin in the game from whoever's giving you that advice.
Yeah. And this comes back to, we speak about it a lot, about who you actually trust as an advisor and what it means to pay. But that's for another time. But thanks, mate.
That's all right.
Yeah. What are we going to chat about next time you're on? What do you reckon? Where's our headspace going to be?
Let's maybe talk about buying opportunities again, and maybe even just trying to get someone else in, and I guess brains trust and go, look, what are your thoughts, old versus new different emerging markets. I love having different, ideally good conversations around seeing property from a different angle and someone else's perspective too.
Maybe we've got our podcast producer here, Todd, in the studio. He doesn't normally sit in here. He's normally sort of pulling strings and levers, and he's got a good team behind him sort of making this sort of drawl that comes out of my mouth sound pretty good. But we're probably overdue a Q&A, I think, at some point in time. So maybe we get you in and we can answer some of these questions, whatever they are. And we're fortunate here at Smart Property Investment that we actually have a pretty good reach into all areas of the property investment sector. So we can find good people to answer the questions that you've always wanted to ask, but we're always scared to. Email the team, editor at smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. We stick them all together, and every sort of now and then we put a Q&A session together, which I want to start doing monthly because they're really, really popular. We can get you back and you can answer some hard questions, whatever they are, and nothing off limits.
No, mate, go for it.
No? Okay, cool. So that's editor at smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. I really enjoy the chat, guys. It's chatting with mortgage brokers. I know a lot of them, so not all mortgage brokers are created equal, but I think we're very fortunate as consumers, as investors, that we actually have access to mortgage brokers who operate in our best interests. So the world is changing, the world is evolving. Watch this space. I think you're going to see a lot more from the mortgage broking sector in the years ahead, and I think they're just going to become even more entrenched into the lives of us investors. So we're very pro-broker, as you can tell, and I can't think of the idea of walking to a bank branch and them trying to work out a mortgage for me. It's good for you, but I generally believe that. But our view and vision towards lenders is that our portfolio is pretty diverse in lenders. We have in it from lenders like Pepper all the way through to Macquarie and Suncorp and stuff like that, and some big ones. So keep your eyes open and your mind open around who you use. But hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to check out smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. If you're not yet subscribing to our morning newsletter, so you're the first to know what's happening in property markets right across Australia, so you can make more informed investment decisions. smartpropertyinvestment.com.au/subscribe. Thanks again, mate.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.